Welcome to Get Your Mind Right, Boots on the Ground, where we spotlight professionals in the field who have overcome challenges and how they work through them. Their stories offer real-world insights and tips for thriving in today's competitive landscape.
Good morning and welcome to Get Your Mind Right. This is the world's only podcast dedicated to digital marketing and merchant services professionals. With me today is Jake Noe. Welcome back, Jake.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good to have you here. Hey, folks, this is part 2 of a series we've got, and it's absolutely dynamite that Jake has put on. And it's called Selling in a Crowded Market Space. So we talked last time, Jake, about diversifying product knowledge, and especially if you're a new rep, what you can do to develop the confidence to effectively go after merchants.
Yep.
So for you folks that missed that, there's a lot of good stuff. Really go back and get caught up on that. But Jake, today, we got some really cool topics. I hope you remember this because this was, I think it was last August when I heard you give this.
It's been a minute.
It's been a minute.
Yeah.
So I got some notes here, and specifically you talked about getting out of your comfort zone, asking the right questions, and gaining a competitive edge. So let's start with this one. I love this comfort zone because in this business, you got a lot of wannabe gangsters, and they want to become OGs, but there's that gap there.
Yeah.
So how do I cross that gap and become an original gangster?
Well, you got to get out of the terminal hustler mode or the lease it and get out of there and making that lease funding mode. And frankly, getting out of the comfort zone is the biggest thing. You got to get away from, hey, just because I've installed this terminal, X amount of times, I can do it in my sleep, doesn't necessarily mean it's the right choice for not only you, but more importantly, the merchant.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so you got to get out of that comfort zone, man.
So now we're talking about, I want to circle back to that point, but you're talking about people that's been in the business a while, right? Mm-hmm. So, and we both know there's a lot of people that's stuck.
Right.
So occasionally you see people get unstuck from that. How do they do that?
So conversing with peers who they see doing something very differently or taking a different approach, seeing their book of business attrite where their peers aren't attriting, and they start asking the right questions. Hey, how are you going about keeping these merchants on for a long period of time, or how are you maximizing your margin on these accounts? And for an example on that, just like folks and humans are beast of just going at the same path and least resistance, taking the path of least resistance.
Right.
They do the same thing with pricing. I've noticed, they could be saving a merchant $5,000 a month in their processing, but yet they may be in their comfort zone and taking the path of least resistance. And they may put them on buyer's choice 3% every single time in every scenario. And that just doesn't make sense. The same way goes for merchants that have small tickets. 3% versus 4% is not that big of a difference on a small ticket.
And you can lose money in that situation.
And you can very easily lose money, especially without a per item fee. So just be cognizant of that. Every merchant's not created equally. Keep the discounted buyer's choice percentage in your back pocket and don't lead with it.
So let's talk more about this comfort zone, because you're really the living laboratory for getting people out of the comfort zone, because I've got pretty good insight, of course, into what you're doing, but you're taking really people. None of your people have a background in merchant services.
That's
right?
Correct.
Now you're looking for some soft skill things that transfer, but there's just not really a merchant services skill set out there that exists. So with all this dizzying array of products, once again, selling in a crowded marketplace, right? You're asking someone to really step outside of comfort zone, because they're responsible for these merchants, their income, and in some cases, nearly all of their money.
Yep.
So how do you get these people to get outside of their comfort zone?
Well, we train them early on not to be scared to just jump in and dive in head first. I would much rather somebody dive in head first on a solution or product set that they're not fully comfortable with. Maybe they've never placed it before, but it is the right solution. And I'd much rather them run in some obstacles in that environment and let our team fix those issues if there are any that arise. And then what you find in short order, 3, 4, 5 merchants down the road, now you're kind of an expert in that. One of our solutions I can think comes to the top of mind is, when you're selling a restaurant, for example, even though, going in and dropping one of our favorites, the Evolte 100 or even the Deja Vu P1,
Yeah.
though that may be easy and comfortable, that's not the right solution for a restaurant, especially a fine dining restaurant. And so you may be intimidated by some of our point of sale solutions. But at the end of the day, again, going back to what I said, I would much rather you place that right solution and then issues arise.
Mm-hmm.
And then just run at those issues and be involved in the resolution of those issues. And then what you find is in short order, you may not be the expert, but you're going to be sound.
Right.
Yeah.
You're going to be have enough knowledge and enough experience where you can confidently explain the solution to the merchant. So you've got something going for you too. I want to point out that you really push repetitions with your folks, and that's how you get experience, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna repeat this process. You're gonna stand at the plate a lot. And you're gonna take a lot of cuts at the ball.
Mm-hmm.
So I see people out in the field, and I've heard this, and people leave training, and I'll follow up. They're fired up after leaving training, and they'll say, well, I got to do this, this, and this, and I'm going to go out and sell them. And it never happens. I mean, great is the mortal enemy of good, right? And they end up dying on the vine.
Yeah.
So, what kind of advice would you give to those folks that are eaten up with the great is the enemy of good?
Find your passion, and find your passion. First, identify who it is that I can relate with very easily.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be the most common sense area to start. For example, you guys have seen the Woodsman brand flying.
Oh, yeah.
New brands really hit the ground running, signed over 100 outfitters on that so far.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the whole notion behind Woodsman and why that came about is we found a very qualified candidate, a good quality person, and that's the hardest thing to find. Once you find that good quality person, at the end of the day, you must find, who can they speak with on a day-to-day basis and be able to relate with in a way that it is going back to our episode 1, it's taking a consultative approach and a trustworthy approach.
Right.
And if you can speak their lingo, they're going to hear you out. And again, it goes back to your product knowledge and being intimidated and not being intimidated.
Mm-hmm.
If you could speak their lingo, you've already gotten over the nervous component. And now you're just talking to them like you would, a friend. And so I would start there, start in an industry that you're comfortable with. If you don't have any hobbies or you don't have any industries in mind, I would recommend starting small or starting, I wouldn't jump into B2B right away. I wouldn't jump into restaurant point of sale for your first deal. I would look for your auto guy that's got a greasy VX520 sitting on the counter.
Mm-hmm.
That thing's seen, many mileage. It's been end of life for 10 plus years. And I would start there. It's an easy conversation to have. If you ask that merchant, many times they're wheeling themselves out from underneath the vehicle, and you say, "Sir, sorry to bother you. I know you're really busy, but are you okay with making less on your margin on these transmission swaps than you would a cash paying customer? You think that's fair that those folks that are using their cards are doing it at convenience to them?"
Right.
And to earn cash back.
Right. And you're paying for it.
And you're paying for it, sir. You're paying for those Disney points. How does that make you feel? And I can tell you right now, firsthand experience through Jasper, we had a meeting that we went to. It's called SAGDA, and we spoke at this association. And there were several automotive shops in the crowd, and we said just that. And we had like 4 people come up to the booth and sign up after because they were fired up too. They said, well, I didn't know that's what those fees were. I thought those went directly to Visa, MasterCard, And so, no, sir, in fact, it goes towards paying those cash back and those points. So that's why your customers are incentivized to use those cards.
Right.
So start easy or start in an industry in which you can speak their lingo. That's always a great place to start.
That's really important, especially for a new person. I know 2 people specifically that where they're single moms, right? And what are they paying for? Daycare.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And they're passionate about that. And they both focused on daycare and done extremely well for that. So,
yes.
Because again, you run into people, well, I really don't have any hobbies, or I'm really not interested in anything.
Right.
Well, they are. They are, though. And, your point that I so agree with is that, especially if you're new, you've already got commonality. You got something to talk to them about.
Yep.
Right. And that authenticity, it translates into the conversation. People see that. You can't really fake it.
Right.
And that's going to help you get a chance to bat.
Yep.
The other thing I want to point out, Jake, is this isn't my thought. I've got this from someone else, and it really took me a while to get my head wrapped around it. But this was in terms of merchant, but it really applies to any product or any service that we have. And what he said is until you pitch it 100 times, you're not an expert.
I would say that's right.
And what his submission was is by the time you pitch something 100 times, you'll have heard every objection.
Mm-hmm.
You'll learn everything that you need to do to improve your pitch.
Yeah.
And you're going to learn everything of what it is, of how this product or service or solution touches those pressure points on the merchants. The problem people have is they want to come out perfect on their first time. Or if they get shot down one time, they say, well, I got to go back to the laboratory. No. You just need to stand up there and keep throwing punches.
No doubt. And that's why we like to start a lot of folks out in the SA position or even the associate RA position. And the reason why is they need to get those 100 at bats.
Right.
And quite frankly, the more no's that you run at, I know you like to say this but it's so true. The more no's you run at, the closer you are to receiving that next yes. But all along the way, you're picking up on small things that you may not even be realizing that you're picking up on. And so that's a lot of truth to that, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's transition into questions. You've talked a lot about questions before, especially on probing questions. And I know that you always start these anytime I've ever heard you put on training, you always start with, hey, well, tell me how you're processing payments today, and tell me who your customers are. Why do you particularly like to start there, Jim?
Because again, I think we mentioned it in episode 1, but you always want to consider the customer and what they would prefer and how they would prefer to handle their transaction.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also want to put yourself in the merchant's shoes. And what merchants like to do is to not pay a lot on credit card processing fees. That's the first thing. And secondly, collect their money as efficiently and quickly as
possible.
Because a lot of them, they don't have a huge reserve of money sitting in the bank that they can pay employee payroll and things with. And so turnaround on those funds is very important. And so just tracking down on all those pain points is what we like to do with those probing questions. Identifying them early is important because you're going to come back to it throughout your conversation. And so, we always want to ask, if you're on a phone call, what's your nature of business? How do you guys accept payments today? Many times what you find is, folks are key entering on a terminal, and really what they should have is a virtual terminal or an option to send out an electronic invoice via SMS or email.
Yeah.
And they don't even know that's an option to them. And you wouldn't have known that had you not asked them, tell me a little about how you're doing things today. You may talk to them about buyer's choice, and I hear this every single day. Talk to them about buyer's choice. I know, I already do that. Really? Hey, you're ahead of the game. That's excellent. Fantastic. Can you tell me a little bit about how you're going about doing that today? Well, I just added 4% to the total. And guys, and for those of you that's listened, many of you know that's not compliant first and foremost. But secondly, they're reporting that as income, and so they're paying higher taxes, and ultimately some of them are landing in a higher tax bracket as a result. And so it's just not ideal. And
they're running the risk of getting shut off by Visa.
Yeah, and so adding the percentage, and again, don't right off the bat say, well, sir, that's not compliant. It's just like when, somebody's got a website that's performing poorly, or maybe it's not mobilely optimized. You don't want to say, man, this website, it's rough. Mm-hmm. Well, my granddaughter built that, John. And so you got to be really careful there. So what I like to do, and what the RAs like to do, is we like to say, hey, we want to first off say congratulations, because you're ahead of the bar when it comes to realizing that most of your funds or a lot of your funds rather are being wasted on these processing expenses. And so, I actually appreciate that you're trying to recapture some of those funds, but let me show you a way that we can do that compliantly and make it less of a headache for you. Mm-hmm. And that would be our buyer's choice program, right? So there's a lot of probing questions that can be asked, and a lot of them just figuring out how they're going about their business today, what issues they have with their current processor or their current digital provider, and then just continue peeling down the layers.
Well, I like, you always start with how do you accept payments today, and who are your customers? And I noticed too that really the rest of the questions they write themselves, right? Because the merchant's going to tell you things, and then you're going to ask a question based on that, and it's going to spark a whole new dialogue. I think that's very effective, by the way. So, the whole premise of this series, Jake, was selling in a really crowded marketplace. Okay, so let's get down to the nut cut now, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is a brutally competitive industry, and it's just saturated with competition. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so how do you make it so that you and your team stand out?
Understanding all of our products and solutions, not before we get started. So don't mishear me. You got to get started first, but
Yep.
try to aspire to learn something new about our product set each and every week. Guys, we have an extremely robust product set at Evolve, and a lot of that comes with our multi-network capability. And, digging into those products and getting to be at an expert level with them, there's no really doors that you can't knock any longer. Rectangle or Practice Bridge, it is a great solution for bridging that gap and integrating seamlessly in with their word-based softwares they have for healthcare, right?
Right.
We did not have these things in our back pockets before. We were a very much so just a one direction, drop a terminal and get out and go to the next one.
So you think this is really crucial, the fact that you've got a really robust products suite out there available to you?
Oh yeah. And our risk parameters with the multi networks gives us a lot of flexibility too. There's really no merchant that we can't help out at the end of the day. Small to small, needing a mobile unit, to your B2B merchant that processes several million a month even, that needs the capability to qualify for level 2 and level 3, have never considered offloading a fee in any way because their ticket size is so large. But now, if I knew my product set well with our new ACH option, you can have that conversation now with this normal B2B merchant who would never have considered it before, because I realized that, we seamlessly integrate in ACH option. So, hey, you have somebody that complains about a $20,000 trust that they put on their card, their American Express. I get that. And so that's what's special about this tool. It's actually designed for your industry. And the way that we address these pain points is, if it's a large ticket like that and they balk at it, then just simply run it via ACH, and that concern goes away. But what we're finding through industry trends and asking our merchants these questions who have started with solutions like this, is we study the data, and it's showing that people are actually still opting to use their cards on those large transactions. And the reason why is because, again, a large dollar amount on a transaction is a lot of points that they're receiving on that card. And so that can
great for their customer, not so
yeah.
great for the merchant.
So we're giving the customer an option. But again, going back to that scenario, guys, that's B2B. And that is a conversation you would have never been able to have before. But now we can, because we understand internally, our RAs do, that we now have the capability to offer ACH on those large tickets if offloading the fee is a concern to the merchant.
And it is. And it is. Well, Jake, this has been awesome. I'd love to have you back on the show sometime.
Love to be on.
Well, I tell you what, I'm going to give you the last word here. Take us home.
All right. Well, guys, leverage your mentors, leverage your sales support team. We're all here for you guys. Evolve is not only evolving our product set to help you knock on more doors, but we're also evolving our team constantly. Leverage those peers. Get that friendly competition going, get that text message thread going. And I love competition, by the way. Create email drafts if you're the manager over a group, and send out these announcement emails, these win emails, and boost that team up constantly. And then at the end of the day, guys, take it home with your product set, learn it well, lean on that product matrix. And that matrix will answer a lot of questions for you if you're new as well.
Jake, thanks again for being here.
No problem.
I'll see you all back here on Wednesday. And for Jake, no, I'm John Johnson. But until Wednesday, keep your mind right.